Two Edmonton police officers were murdered. They were sent to a call, they answered the call, they went to the call, and they never were given the chance to come back home. As a paramedic, as a former first responder, I can tell you that every fiber of my being wants hellfire and fury to land upon the guy that is being held responsible for this, the guy that's on trial right now. The man on trial didn't pull the trigger. He sold the weapon to a minor, to a 16-year-old. The 16-year-old is the one who killed the police officers and then killed himself and his mother. Dennis Okeymow is on trial, and the Crown is pushing for manslaughter charges, and I think we should talk about it. I spent 17 years working as a paramedic. Majority of that time was spent in the city of Edmonton. I'm intimately familiar with the streets, with the demographics, with the problems, with the issues facing first responders in that city. And it is a violent city. There was a year where we had the murder capital of Canada, a title usually beholden to Winnipeg, but we took it one year. A couple of years back, two Edmonton police constables were shot and killed by a 16-year-old. A couple days prior, that 16-year-old had gone to a Pizza Hut and robbed it and shot somebody there too. Dennis Okeymow, a man who is in custody on trial right now, and the Crown is pushing for manslaughter because he's the one who sold the weapon to the deceased, to the shooter who killed the two cops. And the the vengeful side of me, the first responder in me just is like, yeah, man, throw that guy in jail, throw away the key, because he doesn't contribute anything to society. He clearly is just a danger to society, either by making terrible decisions or hanging out with terrible people who do terrible things. So fuck him, throw him away. I don't give a shit about him. But it does raise a broader question because, and hear me out here, okay? In Canada, we have a race-based judicial system, which is disgusting. It's absolutely disgusting, and it should be done away with. And this individual is not likely to be found guilty of manslaughter, in my personal opinion. I believe that they are going to do away with that. I believe he'll be held accountable for, selling a weapon illegally, because he wasn't allowed to have weapons, but he had one, and he sold it. And that weapon was ultimately ended up used in the killing of two cops. My personal opinion is that the judge, whoever's presiding over it, is likely going to do away with the manslaughter charges and simply lean on the lesser charges. The defense will argue that this is a good thing for upholding law because, if you sell your car to an eventual drunk driver, are you then held responsible? To which I would argue, fuck no, because a car is not by its class a weapon. Totally different scenario. But that is an argument that I have heard circulating. This infuriates me because there are two young men who are no longer with us, who simply showed up to work to do the job. They were asked by the city of Edmonton to do the job, to go and fill the roles. I'm gonna let you listen. I'm gonna let you listen to this. You gotta check this out. This is the news clip that we should be listening to here. It tells you more about it, and then we'll come in and talk more.
Closing arguments were heard in a fourth-floor courtroom today in a manslaughter trial related to the deaths of two Edmonton police officers. In March 2023, Constable Travis Jordan and Constable Brett Ryan were ambushed by a 16-year-old with a semi-automatic rifle. The teen shot his mother before killing himself. He also used the same gun to shoot a Pizza Hut employee days earlier. The Crown prosecutor says it wasn't the gun control regime that failed the victims. It was the actions and omissions of the accused, Dennis Okeymow. He argued Okeymow knew or was willfully blind to the teen's mental health issues when he sold him the gun. Okeymow was prohibited from possessing a firearm or ammunition at the time, and the court heard 16-year-olds can't legally buy guns in Canada. The Crown also argued there's evidence Okeymow knew or suspected the teen was involved in the Pizza Hut shooting before the shooting at the apartment and did nothing to warn police. During the defense's closing arguments, he suggested society is looking for someone to blame after such a tragic incident, and his client, Okeymow, is a scapegoat. He disputed the Crown's claim Okeymow knew about the teen's mental illness, saying there's no evidence. The defense told the court his client is taking responsibility for unlawfully selling the gun through a guilty verdict, but says a conviction on the manslaughter and criminal negligence charges will open a floodgate for criminal liability
Criminal negligence. Hey, buddy, he is criminally negligent. He 100% is. There is no way around. Criminally negligent. He sold a gun that he wasn't allowed to have to an individual that isn't allowed to own guns because they're too fucking young. That's criminally negligent. So, no, that won't set a bad precedent. That'll set a precedent that criminals should be held responsible. Now, here's the thing. He used the term scapegoat. My theory is this. This is supposed to go to trial sometime, or have the verdict is supposed to come out sometime this month. My personal belief is that he's going to be found guilty on the lesser charges and then possibly the criminal negligent charge, to which the defense will then start using the race-based thing. They'll start arguing that. And then the judge, even ahead of time, might give him a reduced sentence because this individual happens to be Indigenous. And we have the Gladue principles, which has to be applied to every Indigenous person that goes through the court system, which, in my opinion, is an absolute joke. When I worked as a paramedic, I went to plenty of court cases. Paramedics have to go to court all the time to testify on certain things. I went through numerous court cases involving stabbings and spousals, domestics, things like that. And I went to one where the individual had beat his significant other with a travel mug, one of those metal travel mugs. He beat the absolute living heck out of this poor lady that ended up being our patient. And I had to go to court, and I had to go to court several times, actually, because this guy missed his court date, 4, 5, 6 different times. And eventually we got him in court, and that exact thing happened. They had said that he had been through hardships in his younger life. Being Indigenous lends him to a lot of hardships that the rest of us can't really understand, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. So this guy got a reduced sentence, even though he was the only reason we got him into court was because he was arrested and charged for something else. And so he was in court for that thing. And then they just tacked our thing onto it later on in the day. So I've seen firsthand how frustrating that can be. I also think that the true application of the law needs to be precedent here, needs to be paramount. If you were to sell somebody a weapon, let's say you do this all legally, right? You have a weapon and you sell somebody a weapon, and then that individual goes and uses that weapon to commit a crime, commit murder or whatever. Should you be held responsible? In my personal opinion, no, you shouldn't be. That makes it hard to argue against this specific application of that as well, right? So that's where it'll start to set some bounds that are tough to argue in. And lawyers love loopholes. Lawyers love arguing ambiguity, and there's a lot of ambiguity in that. If you ask me personally, this guy's a piece of shit. Doesn't bring any benefit to society, doesn't do anything to benefit anybody. He is just a degenerate, worthless sack of human skin and bone, and has no real basis for being in our society. And yet, for some reason, our society has largely shifted, especially within our city centers and stuff like that, has largely shifted to siding with the criminal over the victim within many circumstances. And that's infuriating to me. It drives me up the wall. I don't understand why or how we got to that place. Growing up in a certain way, going through certain hardships, they can influence how things play out. Absolutely. Sure. And could you individually take that into case by case basis? Sure, you could. But in a situation like this guy, he wasn't in it. Like, he was known to police already, and he knew that he wasn't allowed to own a firearm. The only way that would happen is if you're known to police and you've gone through the system already. So he knew he wasn't allowed to own a firearm. He went and got a firearm anyway, and it was a completely illegal firearm for Canada. And then he illegally sold it. Like, this guy is an absolute degenerate and has no place in our society. That's the Matt, the first responder Matt talking, because I've seen these people and the damage they can inflict and the harm they can cause, and I've seen what happens with inaction. And so I'm happy to hear that the Crown is pushing so hard for an actual punitive sentence, but do I have faith that will take place? No, I don't. No, I don't. I don't think it will. I really don't. I think this is going to be another sad case where certain charges stick and this guy will be out in the community, with a parole officer or a probation officer or whatever, whoever the case is. And these officers are still going to be dead. Still going to be dead. Which is infuriating. I didn't know these officers personally. I worked at Edmonton, but I wasn't there when these officers were killed. My time in Edmonton was long gone. So this is not coming from a place of me knowing these officers directly. But I mean, I worked with tons of Edmonton police for a long time. And it's not an easy city to work in. And we are crafting a society that makes it almost impossible to want to work in this kind of work, in the first response field, in the police field. I mean, police already have an impossible job. Their job is to reason with the unreasonable. And then they got to deal with, the TikTok generation of cell phones in their face and people who think they're lawyers because they read something on Reddit or they, watched a YouTube video with like, yeah, am I right? I'm a sovereign. I'm just traveling. I'm not fucking idiots. Idiots. But in this scenario, if I can try to strip away my first responder side and my emotional side, and I look at this scenario as a whole, the reason I would go toward the manslaughter charge, now I'm not a lawyer, so, bear with me. The reason I would go toward the manslaughter conviction, and the reason I would approve that if I was a judge, is multifactorial. One, you had a weapon you weren't supposed to have. Two, you had an illegal weapon for Canada. Right? So there's two big things right there. Three, you sold it to somebody who's a minor and took money or whatever it was for it, sold it to a minor, and that weapon was then used to commit grievous bodily harm and murder of two public servants. I don't think you should be able to walk away from that saying, well, I sold him the gun, but I didn't know he was going to do that. And then just hold him responsible for the selling of the weapon. I don't think that you should get the chance to walk away from that. The individual that committed the crime killed himself. Fair enough. I don't believe in holding family accountable unless they've done something directly in the case, And Okeymow's not family as far as I know, but like Okeymow facilitated this. He started the ball in motion. Whether you like it or not, you kick the ball, man. You're in play. And yeah, he's accepting responsibility by pleading guilty at the behest of his lawyers, most likely, at these other charges. But now the lawyers are arguing that sets a bad precedent if he gets criminal negligence and manslaughter. He was criminally negligent in my view. Like, again, I'm not a lawyer. I can't cite the law for you where, he's clearly guilty. Sometimes even when somebody's clearly guilty, if you argue the law better than the other guy, you win. That's our system. That's our system in a nutshell. But I personally think, make an example out of this. Don't make the leniency thing be the rule of the day. There are two dead young men who had signed up to serve their community. And then we have this piece of shit seeking leniency for whatever. I didn't actually do it. I didn't shoot him. No, you just had the weapon that did. And then you sold it for whatever the fuck it was. And it was used to hurt somebody and then kill two other people. Absolutely, you should be held responsible. 100%. You have no basis in society. You have no reason to be here. So I hope personally that they throw the book at him and that's it, that he's done. There's no purpose for a guy like that in this world. That's just my rant. That's just my feelings on the matter. To the two slain officers, may you rest in peace. Thank you for your service. And to those of you who still wear the badge, wear that uniform and go out every day, police, fire, paramedics, whatever, thank you so much for everything you do. Take care. Be well, be safe.